Victor Osimhen. They're in talks to convince the player to join. There are some outlets that say they're struggling to convince him. There are others that believe it's advancing and it could be close. George, how do you see this going for Chelsea? Do you think they'll pull it off? Do you think they'll bring Victor Osimhen to their club this summer?
I think he could go. I think it looks like a move that probably suits Chelsea. From back in January when he said he chose the club, when he had quite a few after him, I thought Chelsea was the club that he had chose. So could be a good move. I do question, for me, because the move potentially involves Lukaku, I take it, right? And for me, I look at Osimhen and whenever I see him play, I think he's a good player. But he does remind me a bit of Lukaku. Like, he's very awkward technically at times. In front of goal can be questionable. He had that great season when now Napoli went unbeaten, but onwards from then and apart from that, he's never really been a 20-plus goal a season striker. For the money that he's being quoted, it's what is it, 60-odd million or so? Like, it's a good signing, but it's not moving the needle for me.
You got a few, yeah. I hear what you're saying, George. So that cut out a little bit. What do you think, Giuseppe? Because do you think it's moving the needle, or do you agree with George that maybe they're just replacing Lukaku with Lukaku 2.0?
It can go either way with him. It really can, because he looks like he could be really good, but at the same time, he also gives that vibe of he could also come and not be that great, like as they think he's going to be. I think that he's a good signing for Chelsea. Do I think they really need him? Maybe not. If I was Chelsea and I look at the way Nkunku looks pre-season, I'd be saying like maybe like more intelligent signing for someone like Chelsea would be an Ivan Toney as a striker rather than an Osimhen. But listen, he could come in and just be phenomenal, and then we're all here going, "Oh crap, this guy's come in and he's completely added the clinical edge to Chelsea." He's good. The Italian league's different. We've seen, as George said, I know that's why he's as well doing the comparison, because you've seen Lukaku smash it in the Italian league, and then in the Premier League, he just can't cut it. I think there's a little bit different. I think that this guy's a bit faster and stuff, so there's probably a bit more to his game than Lukaku that will suit the Premier League. I just think that people overrate Osimhen. And I said it when Arsenal were linked to him. I just think the problem with him is he's overrated. People think he's like top 3, top 4 strikers or something. He's just not. He's good. The money that they're offering, the money that they want for him is insane. I know Chelsea apparently can get him for Lukaku in like 50 million. It's not a bad deal, to be honest. But yeah, listen, I think he could be all right for them, to be honest. I think I personally wouldn't take him at Arsenal over Gyökeres. That's me personally. And I'm not saying that because Chelsea's linked with him, because there's still a chance that Arsenal would go in for Osimhen. There's nothing that said we wouldn't. But if you actually ask me, I'd rather take the risk on Gyökeres than Osimhen. And I just think that he has that personality as well that could be a bit, I think, toxic when stuff ain't going his way. I know that's a bit harsh to say when you've not seen much. But I just think there's a few bits and pieces of him that seem to be a bit techie. But I think it'll be a good signing for them if they get him done. And you know they're going to all be excited. You know that Don and Ches can already see them coming in. Hi-ho,
we come in twos. We come in twos. We come in twos.
All you have to do is refer them to his performance in AFCON, and then you'll see how much really of a player he is. Like, he was decent, but without any service, he will give you nothing. That's the thing with Osimhen. But Chelsea have Cole Palmer, so I doubt that they'll lack that problem. I think he'll score goals for them.
I think what Giuseppe just said, the player that they named, I said it on the group chat as well. If they get someone like Ivan Toney, he would strike a little bit more fear to me as a rival than Osimhen, in my opinion. I think the kind of players that they got, especially with attackers like Palmer and Nkunku, the intelligence, the hold-up play, and let's not forget, he can be clinical at times. Like, he's a very, very good footballer. Someone like him, I think it'll be right up Chelsea's streak, and I don't know why they haven't gone in for him. I said this even like earlier this year. If Chelsea signed Toney over Osimhen, I think that's a brilliant piece of business. I've just never been that convinced about Osimhen. I think that one season that he had with Kvaratskhelia was really both incredible. But this season, I'm not too sure on him. I'm really not. And I think for that amount of money, with Tony being available for about 35 M's, I think Tony is a no-brainer for me, in my opinion. And he's homegrown.
I feel that way about Tony, but let's be objective for a moment. No one's buying him. You could make that argument about Osimhen, but that's more the price. People don't want to pay 120, 130 million. If Tony's, and this is me challenging my own opinion, if Tony's as good as I think he is, why does nobody want to buy him?
Because he doesn't fit the profile of a lot of clubs that are now looking at. Because even when you look at the likes of United, they want to support their wingers more than they want an out-and-out target man striker. You know, even when you look at Arsenal, we're more looking at the false nine type. You know, City don't need him. You know, so there's an idea of like Tony, I think, had that hype, but he also had a few problems where Arsenal were going to go in for him, but then something kind of happened when Arsenal-Brentford played and the ball kind of were put off by him. But I do think there's quality there, and like both of them said that Tony probably suits what they need more, and Viktor Osimhen I feel like it's a gamble, and I don't know if they'll be any more happier with Viktor Osimhen than Lukaku. I feel like it's going to be a similar merry-go-round story with these Chelsea fans that they're going to get Viktor Osimhen, and look, I feel like he's going to go one of two ways. He can either absolutely smash it and compete with Haaland, or he could do what Lukaku did and just not do anything. And I just don't think there's going to be a middle ground where you're going to be happy and content with the player, and he's going to be another 100 and whatever million that they end up spending, and they're just not going to be happy, and they're still going to have a problem with goal scoring. And I actually think he's going to take away from their team a little bit as well, because he's not going to do what Nicola Jackson's doing to allow Palmer to do what Palmer was doing. And, I feel like Nkunku, if he can stay fit, it should be their number one, and Osimhen holds the bench.
I think those type of strikers like Osimhen, I mean, I don't like going through history of strikers for all teams, but Chelsea just haven't had that greater luck when it comes to players that are just natural poachers or really good goal scoring strikers. But the only players that they do that are great strikers are those sacrificial strikers that make other players around them look amazing. Like Didier Drogba, to an extent, what he did with Frank Lampard, the partnership that they had, the sacrifices that he made so that Lampard could get the goals at times, but also chipping in as well. And even to the extent Diego Costa with Eden Hazard. Like those kind of strikers historically have been what Chelsea have had a lot of success with, compared to the likes of maybe Torres, Shevchenko, or even to an extent Adrian Mutu or someone like that. They've always had players that are sacrificial, that helped their players around them rather than actual goal-scoring strikers.
The thing is, to what Terry said as well about the reason why is no one going for Tony, definitely at that price, and that do we overhype him? And sometimes I wonder that about players, because we're not like scouts and stuff, right? We're just fans, and we watch what we see on the pitch and that, and we can make good assumptions and good like thoughts about players and how they would fit a team and that. But like, it brings me back to a few other signings, like, sorry, George, but like Basuma, yeah. When Spurs signed Basuma, right, everyone was like, what the hell? Why has no one gone for Basuma? Yeah.
We know why no one. We can't say it.
Yeah.
There was that incident, but we didn't know who was.
I don't think that was.
But was it that? I mean, you look at Basuma at Tottenham, and this is where I think I use these words so much in the last 2 months, but I think they're so relevant. There's how you feel, there's a subjective view, and then there's a reality. I used to rate Zaha when I was younger, and he was younger. And then I got to a point where everyone thought I hated him. And it wasn't about hating on Zaha. It was more, I think he's a world-class baller. Then why has he been at Palace so long and nobody of any real notes tries to buy him? And when he eventually leaves, he goes to Turkey. With all due respect to my Turkish brothers out there, you're not one of the top 5 leagues in Europe. Sometimes, like for me, that's the answer to a lot of the Martial fanboys. Still last season, like, my guy deserves a proper. Where is he actually? Is he free? No one bought him.
Yeah, he's a free agent. Yeah,
he's a free agent, and no one's coming in for him. It proves the point. I think where your player goes, if you rate them individually, if you have stocks in them, if you think they're great, you have to look at who tries to buy them.
I think,
and that's my question mark over Tony. I don't think he's got an attitude problem. I think he's excellent. But if I remove my personal emotions and my personal bias, what is a concern is, why is nobody pushing hard to sign him.
I've got an answer
Yes.
for you on that one. So when we look at the new kind of scouting setup that a lot of Premier League clubs and actually top clubs are now doing, they're analysing more than just performances alone, but they're looking at technical attributes that those players have, but also mental attributes to how they kind of correspond to certain things that happen on the pitch. You know, these sort of things have come out in sort of the documentaries that we've been seeing when players have been signed, and also the reasons why certain players have signed for clubs as well. So when you're looking at an Ivan Toney, for example, a lot of the factors are going to be those behind the scenes issues of, you know, gambling and betting. And is that going to be something that is worth us gambling on and paying like 30 to 40 million pounds for? Is that going to be a mental barrier? Because now what you're seeing is the scouting reports do actually implement a mental side of the game. Like, are they mentally capable of making that step further and actually handling the pressure of playing for a big club? Because a lot of the times we've seen it where someone comes from a smaller club and goes into a bigger club and just can't hack it. It's not because they're not good enough or they don't have the ability to.
So, do you actually think that about Tony though? Because I think questions
I'm not
on
saying that, but what I'm saying is these are factors that they're going to consider. I'm not saying that is the reason why Tony isn't being signed. I mean, every club's going to have its own reasons. But when I look at Tony, I do think he's a limited player. I don't think he's an all-round striker that a lot of these clubs are looking for in terms of can he hold up, can he play more than just being a target man or a guy that can hold up the ball? Can he actually do more than that? And that's what clubs are going to look at. Has he got the technical attributes to come in and complement the system, or is he going to take away from it? And I think scouting has become so complicated, is why the players that we like, because on the eye, they look good, but underlying metrics probably say that he's not good enough for those bigger teams.
Yeah, I think because with Ivan Toney, it's definitely a strange one, because you would think that like certain people, even like a Liverpool or even to an extent a United or a Chelsea would have gone for him by now. You could argue Arsenal as well. Spurs are obviously the ones that look like they might get him. But even that, like, you would have thought that at that price, Spurs would have just snapped it up by now and just said 35 million, 40, let's just get him done, you know? There must be stuff around these players. And I agree with what Terry said, like with the Zahas and that. There's sometimes we're like, oh, we've got to get this guy, we'll just kill it at our club. But then they don't kill it anywhere. And then it's like you and no one ever backtracks, you know, no one ever then goes back and goes, when Zaha left and went to Turkey and said, you know what, I was wrong about Zaha. Maybe he wouldn't have been. And a lot of Arsenal fans were crying for Zaha for years and years and years. But there's also the difference about being a big fish in a small pond and being a small fish in a big pond. There is that saying's true, that sometimes we don't maybe realize how much of a system helps a player. You know, sometimes we'll look at, and Basuma might be a good look at that. Like Basuma at Brighton, maybe we looked at it and didn't realize how much the Brighton system made Basuma a better player. And if you take him out of that system, he's still an all right player, but he's not the player that people think he would be. They just think, oh, this guy's amazing. So I think that might be one side of it. But Tony not going anywhere is still wild to me, because I actually just rate him as a player.